Thinking back, at what point did you realize this was no ordinary flight?
We had just gotten airborne, leaving Fond du Lac, and I could feel the aircraft, the back of the aircraft. So my flight attendant jump seat is at the back, and the back end goes up really high, and then it came down really low. And initially, I just thought that it was turbulence, as I had felt so many times before, but then it continued, and before I knew it. Like I don't have any windows by the flight attendant jump seat, so I couldn't look out the window to see that we were actually falling. And before I knew it, we were just we had hit the ground. My flight attendant jump seat dislodged from the wall, and I actually flew like into the galley. And when we stopped, the engines were quiet. There was no engine sounds once we had stopped sliding in through the trees, and then I could just hear passengers screaming. And
There were two crew members, two captains up at the front of the plane. You also had 22 passengers on board, and as you mentioned, they're screaming. What goes through your mind?
right away, my emergency evacuation procedures came into place, and I just started commanding to everybody to remain seated. When I got up to look into the cabin, it was just completely smashed in, and you couldn't even walk in down the aisle. There was just all of the seats were just squished within each other, and so I tried to look out the windows. I couldn't do it, and I commanded to the people at the front of the plane to look out the windows and open the emergency exits and get out, and everyone was screaming, "We're stuck, we can't get to them."
At what point did you realize, okay, we're going to have to kick or we're going to have to do something here?
So as soon as I couldn't get the door open to swing open, then I started kicking it from the top, and I just kept kicking it and kicking it and kicking it until I just couldn't kick. I got the help of 3 passengers who I used as able-bodied passengers. So a flight attendant's job is when people are boarding, you assess to see who would be able to help you in case of an emergency. And so I got 3 men, and they all started kicking, and so I'm trying to balance myself in the rear of the aircraft in the cargo area, but I'm slanted, so I'm out of their way. And then they're kicking, and they're taking turns kicking at the door, and one guy is throwing his body into the door, and while they're actually kicking, I used somebody's cell phone and I called 911.
And have you ever been doing your job again since then?
I went back to the scene of the crash in June. Fond du Lac had organized a 2-day healing thing for the survivors and their families. So I went up there, I went to the crash site. My job, though, I haven't been able to fly as a flight attendant since. And I've been assessed a couple times, and psychologically, like, we're not quite sure if I'll ever get to that point again.